Lonnie Root.
Cello.
Great friend and cello player in my band. Real name is Alonson Chalice Root. Very strong name.
Very strong.
You can call him Lonzo or Lonnie Roo, whatever you prefer.
Roo.
Roo.
It all works. I'll answer to all of the above.
So I wanted to ask you some questions about, you getting started playing cello. Obviously, not a ton of people play the cello, and when you find one, it's pretty amazing. And I just want to hear how you decided to pick up the instrument.
Oddly enough, I grew up in a very musical family. Both my parents did musical theater and taught acting and singing lessons and did Broadway. So I sort of grew up around this influence of show music and Broadway and the lights and the grandeur of the Broadway stage. And so I was always very enthralled just with like performances and with big musical numbers and things like that. And so I kind of got into like singing when I was younger a little bit.
Yeah.
And then picked up a little bit of guitar, did a little bit of ballet. There's videos to prove it, which I did not bring with me.
How long did you do ballet?
Not too long, like a year or two. I was fantastic. That was as graceful as a swan.
I would love to show some of your video clips of that at some point.
That'll, when America's ready, it'll happen. Around middle school, I played like a little solo festival thing, and I actually met this woman that listened to me play that knew of a private cello teacher that she taught out of her house. She had a studio. So I went and saw her, and that's when things sort of started taking off for me. And when I started getting that one-on-one private instruction, because you're talking about an instrument with, it doesn't have frets. There's a lot of technique involved with the left hand, right hand, the whole body, especially cello. I mean, all instruments, but since it's sort of a part of you, there's a lot that goes into it. So I teach cello now as well. That's kind of what inspired me to do that, because I really started to connect the dots once I was able to sit down with somebody one-on-one and really be shown in detail how this crazy thing works.
Yeah. I think it's so cool because it's like part of your body, the way you're sitting. So like when you're like really in it, when you're playing a song, do you just feel like you're so connected to the instrument?
Oh yeah, big time. And I even tell my students sometimes, like, you can feel when you're hitting certain notes, if it's right, it rings and it feels good.
Yeah.
It's known as a very melancholy instrument. It doesn't always have to be that way, but I think because of its tone and its sort of mellowness, and it gets a loud, deep sound, but it's very relatable to the human ear because it sounds so much sometimes like a voice. And that's why it's not necessarily a mainstream instrument, but people always say like violin and cello. That's what you hear a lot on, I don't know, what sticks out in certain recordings and things like that, just because the violin there's so much repertoire for, and then there's a lot of repertoire for the cello as well for that same reason, just because it's a relatable instrument, and especially like very slow and sad songs, it really comes out really, really nicely.
Yeah, it really like adds a lot of texture to a song.
You don't learn right away that you can really go outside the box with these kinds of classical instruments, so I never really made that connection until really more like late high school, especially into college, and that's when I started playing with different bands and things like that. Because I started realizing what it had to offer in numerous different situations. So I love playing. I love classical music and playing with orchestras, chamber orchestras. But I equally love the experience of incorporating it in different kinds of music. The kinds of music we do, so rock, blues, and finding ways for it to fit in that I might not have thought of before. So it's sort of a neat musical journey.
Yes, and it's very cool. Like Wallace and I were talking about that last week because he started with classical music, and I started with classical music, and so did you. And it's cool how we've all just kind of like taken that, beginning platform and just grown with it and made things sound like our own now. And it's a really great foundation, to start that way.
It gives you a really well-rounded understanding of the instrument, and and again, that's what I work with my students now. I teach, and it sort of is how I think of the instrument in general. I teach a very, not strict, but more traditional classical method, but I incorporate these, like, whether it's giving them like arrangements of Beatles songs or just like popular music and showing them things they can do, because like I said, that's not the first thing you learn, especially like if you start in school or something. But it's a neat transformation to make, and it's important for me to continue doing classical. Like I said, I love it, but Yeah.
Well, it's so important to train your muscles to have like that strong foundation so you can build off of it. But if you just start with style, then you will run into problems with your technique. But if you start with technique, then you add in style later, it makes you such a better player.
If you can read music, you can do a lot. Yeah. I was watching this Edgar Meyer, amazing bass player, upright player. He was giving a master class I was listening to, and he said something like, if you learn to read music, you'll never go broke.
Well, what song do you want to play today?
What about I Will Not Break? I thought that might be a nice one.
Okay. That's one of my original songs.
Indeed it is.
And Lonnie is all over the song on the record coming out in July. So we've layered him up. So he recorded one track, and then we go back, and then he records another track on top of that. So it sounds like multiple players, but it's all the Roo right here.
All the Roo, holding it down.
All right, let's do it. Oh, but I can't pretend that I'm not down to keep you around. I will not fall. I will stand tall through it all, yes, just so you can see the strongest parts of me. Do you know, does it show? I'm trying hard to hold back. I can't run down, chasing you around. My heart is under attack. It's under attack. I will not break. I will not bend. Oh, but I can pretend that I'm not awake. Do you know? Does it show? Now I'm trying hard to hold back. I can't run down, chasing you around. My heart is under attack. Said it's under attack. I will not break. I will not bend. Oh, but I can pretend that I'm not awake. Oh, I can pretend that I'm not awake. Oh, I can pretend that I'm not awake. Oh, I can pretend that I'm not awake. Very nice.
All right.
That was great. Thank you so much. Lonnie Root, everybody. So what are you going to do today?
Well, I'll tell you what, it's been raining all day, and you know, sitting here in the sunroom now, I'm starting to see the sun coming through. Things are starting to clear up. I don't know. I'm thinking, I think it might be about time for this bird to fly.